Welcome back. This week, let's talk a little bit about fertility. So, if you're one of the thousands of couples who is trying to get pregnant and having some challenges, I hear the struggle, the pain, and all of the things that are associated with it. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the myths associated with conception and fertility and some other things that you could maybe consider. So, for a couple that's been trying to get pregnant and maybe having some challenges, doing all the testing, trying to figure out what's happening, trying to identify how you can bring a child into this world. There is often this understanding or this assumption, really, that if you're not having success, then maybe you have to go to a fertility clinic and consider some kind of IUI, IVF kind of care. And that might be true. However, that may not be the necessary next step for the vast majority of people. So let's talk about a little bit from the holistic perspective. So when I work with a couple who's trying to conceive, there are a couple different aspects to this that we look at. So the first question is actually, why do you want to get pregnant? Right? Because we don't think about that. We kind of think about like we want to bring a baby into this world and all of that, but which is great. But in order to bring a healthy baby, have a healthy pregnancy, I think we kind of say take that for granted that we just assume we want to have a healthy baby or that the outcome will be having a healthy baby or having a healthy pregnancy, an asymptomatic pregnancy. So let's talk a little bit about what is different when you work with me to go on this preconception journey. So, when it comes to chiropractic philosophy, there's three different aspects of sources of stress essentially that can create misalignments in the spine. Why do we care about misalignments in the spine, particularly as it relates to fertility? Why am I even talking about that today? So part of it is because there's 80% of the information that is going from the body back to the brain via the nerves, and 20% of that is going from the brain to the body. Do you know that? So we know the nerves are communicating, right? Allowing our brain to process information, send resources where it needs to in different parts of our body. However, 80% of that information is coming from the body to the brain. So, as important as it is to have great mindset, positive outlook, all of those things in terms of our mental health, it is arguably much more important to make sure that our body is functioning at its optimal level, right? So, when it comes to looking at alignment of your spine, when was the last time you had your alignment checked or your partner had their alignment checked, right? When we look at how the spine is aligned in our body, right? Our lovely spine here. So, we want to make sure that the alignment is functioning properly because it allows for more optimal communication of the nerves back to the brain and then the brain to the rest of the body. And you have lots of nerves that are in the low back, in the pelvis region, that can impact not only your reproductive health, but all of the different organs and tissues, as for a woman and her pelvic floor, her ovaries, her uterus, all of those things for a man, all of his sperm, all of the parts that we want to make sure are functioning at optimal level. So you can certainly go the clinical route, and maybe that is necessary for a number of families. But for the vast majority of people, if we can actually create a stronger foundation of health, that makes the rest of the process so much more effective, so much easier. So even if you do need to go through IUI, IVF, or whatever those types of interventions might require, you have a much better success rate when the body is already strong. So we want to look at this from a 360 approach to your health and well-being, right? So we want to make sure that the structural alignment is working properly or is adapting and compensating appropriately. We want to make sure that the things that you're feeding your body, the way that you're nourishing your body is not only quote unquote healthy for you, because there's a lot of range with that, but we want to make sure that you're digesting that food appropriately and absorbing those nutrients and assimilating those nutrients, because that has a much bigger impact, I think, than simply paying attention to what you're eating or what you're avoiding, right? That is important, but we want to make sure that you're not only eating it, but that you're also digesting it. So that saying of you are what you eat, I think is partially true, but I think it's actually beyond that. It would be you are what you eat and digest. in my opinion. So we want to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients in. We want to make sure that your exposure to different cleaning products or different chemicals is not hindering your endocrine system, right? There was a book published many years ago that talked about when pine sol was a big cleaning agent, that talked about the effects of pine sol on kids' brains, right? They're closer to the ground typically as compared to adults. And so the fumes, if you will, from the cleaning agents, how that impacts our children's brain or our brains has a really, really big and I thought shocking impact when we look at something as seemingly benign as picking up a household cleaner. So, to make sure that your body is able to handle all of these different chemical exposures. And then when it comes to mindset, like typically when we talk about stress, we typically think of it as just being mental or emotional stress, right? But all of the other components, the physical, structural stress, the nutritional, chemical stress, all of that comes together to create this foundation of health. So that's why we put together this program to really help couples establish a foundation of health. It's not necessarily new information, but it's really a step by step process so that you can focus on the other things. You don't have to focus on what is the next step I need to do to help improve my health. What is the next thing I need to try to modify or change? And we might be able to do that for a short period of time, but most people, try for a few weeks or a few months and then we kind of fall off the wagon because it can feel really daunting and really intimidating. So that's why we created a step by step program for you to take away the guesswork and for you to just be able to establish these small changes on a incremental basis so that we can really establish a strong foundation of health and really help set the stage for healthy conception, healthy pregnancy, healthy children. If you're interested in finding out more, please check out the link below, and we'll see you next week.